Hello and welcome back to Chicken for Breakfast, the podcast where we have all the answers to one very simple question.
What's cooking, y'all?
I'm Magic.
I'm Mari.
And welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about what's cooking with Mari.
Okay. Where you want to start?
Let's start with, I know that you just started a podcast.
Yes, I did.
So let's talk about that. So what's the podcast called, and why'd you make it?
The podcast is called Life's a Real Podcast, and I started it with my sister, and we started, I want to say, about a month ago, and so far, I've loved having this podcast, really, honestly.
Why is she not on with us right now? What's going on?
I don't know.
Why is she not on with us right now?
She should be on right now.
Is there a way we could get her on, like camera-wise? Is there a way we could make that happen? Are you comfortable coming on? Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Yeah, we could put the chair there and change this camera to that. All right, we're doing a little change here. Yeah. Things happen. All right, and we're back. Kind of a improv thing. So here we go. Let's just do a whole new introduction thing. So, what's cooking? I'm Magic.
I'm Mari. I'm Egypt.
Nice to meet you. So, we started a podcast, Sisters. Dope. Tell me about it. Like, what's going on with it?
Where do we start?
Well, to be honest, I feel like the podcast started when we were in our apartment. And then she just came up to me with the idea of wanting to do a podcast. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I've never done it before. We usually have good conversations off camera. So I was like, okay, I would like to do that.
So it's just conversations.
Yeah.
I always tell people who like, and we talked about this, I think, on a couple episodes ago. We had Latif on there, and he has a podcast. And one of the big things that came up was when you're doing a podcast, it's easy. Like it's difficult to still do it, right? But it's like you can do one just by sitting there talking, recording like a voice memo even. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting that you were just sitting there, like you have good conversations. Let's bring that to light. Mm-hmm. So how do those good conversations go into a podcast, right? So how do you just take a normal everyday conversation? Like where does the idea for a podcast come in?
Well, our whole podcast is mainly based around like our spirituality mainly. So when we have our conversations at home, it'd be like not just random conversations, it'd be deep conversations that we be having, and we'll just go for it for hours, and we were just like, we might as well just create a podcast and actually talk to people about what we be talking about. So we'll sit there and we'll just have a conversation. We'll be like, okay, this would be a great podcast idea, and that's how we come up with our ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So go more in depth of like what you guys talk about. So you said, you're very into spirituality, which is dope. It's not a personal thing, but I know it's a big thing. So I would actually be very interested in listening to your podcast, actually. But what specifically do we go into? Like, just give me like, have you made a few episodes already?
A couple, yeah.
Dope. What's your favorite one? And just tell me a little bit about it.
I think my favorite one was when we had Josh and Brayden.
Yeah, our favorite one when we had Josh and Brayden on, they kind of...
Yeah, they was giving their authentic answers. I like that.
Real answers. And it was coming from them. It wasn't like, it
Yeah.
wasn't scripted. It was just authentic.
See, authenticity is very difficult to find sometimes. It's like some people are being real and then some people aren't. Mm-hmm. So what challenges do you have in terms of podcasting? Like, is there anything that you're like, I wish that was better? Or this was really hard to get started?
My biggest thing would probably be my challenge is the beginning is trying to perfect the episode, trying to make sure that we have a set format so that way when we do go on air, we're not having any type of errors. Like it just flows perfectly. So when I think I try too hard to perfect the episode, that's when it gets challenging, and I have to just be Mari, and it will flow. Just have to be.
Just be, and it'll flow. And I've actually it's really cool that Sisters are doing it. That's like, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure I've seen, I haven't seen it though. So it's very interesting. When I was doing podcasting by myself, it's boring. No one likes podcasting by yourself. So it's cool to see that relationship, like having that, like I can't even imagine doing a podcast with my sisters. I love my sisters. If you're watching this right now.
Yeah, they're gonna tap you.
Yeah. I might have just dug a hole a little bit, but I can't imagine doing a podcast with my sisters only because our opinions are different. We don't really talk much. So it's really cool that you guys have that Like, have you always been that way? Has it always been super tight?
It's crazy because we're not biological sisters. We're actually best friends.
Oh, word.
So we
Word.
just-
Now I feel kind of silly, but that's cool.
We've been friends for what, 10 plus years?
Yeah.
A couple. So it's just, I don't know. We just always, since we were younger, we always just had that connection, instant connection. Like we always think alike, we talk alike, we act alike. So it's just always just been so easy to talk with her and just really have a conversation with her. Just feel like it's natural. Like I don't have to be nobody else. So it made sense to do a podcast with her because when I'm doing my podcast, I want to just, what's the word I'm looking for? Feel comfortable, you know? So no, I just want to feel comfortable and I'm more comfortable with her. So it made sense to do it with her.
So the big question with, I always ask it, and this is like, it's gonna be a hard question. So like, you could be sitting there having a really deep conversation, but what makes you want to take that conversation and get it to the world? Like, why does it matter?
I would say it's because the conversation that we have, I feel like it could possibly help somebody else that doesn't think about the way we think. And the topics we really talk about, I feel like it's more of we are sharing our opinions based off of what we think is the best choice for certain situations. And we could probably talk about something that somebody else didn't think about, and then they could take that and you know, apply that in real life type of situation. Because I do like helping people, and if I can't be there physically, at least I can tell you some good advice if you want to take it and, you know, do whatever you wish to do with that.
Right. That's a good outlook. Do you wanna build on that, or is that
I agree with everything she just said.
awesome?
Everything.
So do you guys always agree? Is that you always agree?
Yeah.
See, I've always been like really curious. Like, does that work? Like, always agreeing? Does that work?
We have our issues sometimes where certain things we should not agree on, but we always, it just happens.
That's fair. It's very cool to see it playing out then. That like, cause like I don't know if you guys saw the episode with Marcello, but he and I are, he's a wild dude, and he's definitely not anywhere close to agreeable sometimes. He's a cool guy, but not the most agreeable dude. And I think that's kind of what makes things interesting. So it is cool to see both ends. So my final, I have a few other questions. I'm sure we're just talking, you know. This is more of a thing to kind of get. It's a networking thing, right? So we definitely want to get your podcast shouted out. We definitely want people to go watch this because it's really cool to see. It's cool to see not only students of mine, but also friends of the students, and just seeing everyone here working together. It's really cool to see. So where can we find this podcast?
Right now, you can find the podcast on my Instagram. It's yeaaa.mari. The podcast name is Life So Real. We go live every Saturday at 2 p.m.
Life So Real. Live? Life So Real. And it's live, though. It's a live podcast. That is something we don't do. And that's kind of cool. We've had the idea. We'll probably get it going, but it's really cool that you guys do it live. That's really dope. Every Saturday, 2 p.m. Life's so real. Life's so real. That is true. So give me like a cool thing. Like, why is life? What makes life real? Like, give me like something, you know.
The things I would say that makes life real is the stuff that we encounter ourselves as humans that go through life every day. Everybody has their own moments, regardless of what your background is. If you're more, I would say, financially stable than other people, you still have your problems. And that's why we thought of the idea of Life So Real podcast, because we're talking about real life situations that happen in real life. And honestly, I don't really know.
There's a lot of topics that I feel like that a lot of people go through in the world and that they don't want to talk about it. Like they want to just, okay, forget about it and just keep going like through life. And I feel like we made this podcast to call out real life stuff, to really bring it to light, to talk to people so that they know, like,
right, make
come
them,
to awareness.
You know, basically
wake people up. That's the perfect word. Wake people up.
Because a lot of people are definitely asleep to a lot of things that happen, because we have a lot of distractions, especially phones and internet and social media. It's a lot of distractions. So if you would want to go on YouTube and watch something, you could watch our podcast.
Nice. I was gonna go somewhere and then I forgot. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah. So when I first started, this podcast is not what it started as. When I started this podcast, I actually started it as a student, and it was called Chicken for Breakfast. But the intro was exploring the world through a 19-year-old's eyes. It's like, so moving from, your parents' house to an hour and a half away, doing school, living alone, bills, being an adult, it's crazy difficult. So I was like, I'm going to make this podcast. I'm going to talk about things, and I'm going to work through my issues through this podcast. But it's really not going to look like I'm working through my own issues. It's really just going to be helping other people. And at the end of it, I was like, I'm just kidding, guys. Like, I was really going through it. And it helped. Like, even just talking, like, it helps. Like, so do you guys find yourself problem solving? Or like taking things from your own lives into the podcast and making, not necessarily it better for yourself, but is it like experience is mattering to other people?
I feel like we try to make like it very relatable to our life and to try to like use what we've been through or what we're going through to help other people, because I know everybody in the world has issues, but 9 times 10 there's somebody that has gone through the same thing that you're going through and you just don't know. So I feel like us having this podcast and just talking about normal stuff, it will be able to help people, and it sounds better coming from the fact of hearing our own experience of stuff that happened to us. You see what I'm saying? Right.
Absolutely. It's really cool that you're using your voice, using your experiences to make other people's lives better. And that's like, we'd like to think that's most podcasts and most everything. And unfortunately, it's not. But I really respect what you guys are doing. I think it's really cool. It's really cool. It's really cool. So one more time, let's do a shout out and then head out of here. That's all good.
YEAAA.MARI on Instagram.
Okay, my Instagram, oh Lord, is YEAAHH. Okay, y'all following me, right? .Egyptian. That's it.
And you can go to my Instagram to watch our podcast, Life's So Real.
Life's So Real. Is that going to come to any other podcasting platforms? Is that a goal? Yeah. Definitely get Anchor up there.
Yeah, I'll be building it.
Well,
You got to.
YouTube and after music coming soon.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know it was, I know. I was like, one person became 2, but it was really cool. It was a really different experience for us here. So thank you for being on. I like chicken for breakfast.
I love chicken naturally, it's all together. So chicken for breakfast for sure.
You like it too?
A little bit.
I like it too, and we hope you will at the end of the day too. I forget. See ya.